So we're going to move on to our next main agenda item, and you're welcome to go off video if you'd like to at this point. The focus of this one is on offshore wind jurisdictional authorities. You might have noticed that given the number of different state and federal agencies involved, that this is a complex, offshore wind is a complex endeavor. And we want to help answer the question, who is who and what do they do? So we have 4 presentations here that we'll be sharing in a row. The first will be George Detweiler from the US Coast Guard, and he will be followed by Noah Silverman and David Dale representing the NOAA National Marine Fisheries Service, who will be followed by David Kaiser representing the NOAA National Ocean Service, CZMA, and then finally from the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement, Sherry Hunter. We'll do these 4 presentations in suite, and then we will have again an opportunity for clarifying questions. So I think with that, I will pass it over to George if you are ready to present.
Yes, sir. I'm ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you, Eric. Good morning / good afternoon to all, depending on where you're located in the United States. And I thank Balm and the Gulf of Mexico State Task Force for the privilege of speaking here. And I'm going to talk a little bit, obviously, about the Coast Guard and who we are and what we're responsible for. Next slide, please. Our roles and responsibilities are pretty simple, and I know there's probably members of this meeting that have seen this before, but basically, we're to ensure our nation's maritime safety, security, and stewardship. We're recognized as subject matter expert in, again, maritime safety, security, mobility, national defense as far as the Coast Guard's role, those in national defense, and protection of the marine environment. We have been a member, when I say we, the Coast Guard has been a member of Balm's state's task energy forces, all of them. So we think it's very, very important. We work with Balm to collaborate on the use of navigation safety risk assessments for evaluating specific projects. Under the NEPA process, we are a cooperating agency. And if Balm decides to combine Section 106 with NHPA, we will be a consulting agent for that part as well. Next, please. Our objectives, basically summed up in the first sentence. We want to protect mariners, all mariners. It does not matter what they're driving in the water. We want to protect them all. We want to protect property. It's what we call property, which does in fact include the wind farms. We really don't relish the idea of ships running into wind farms. And then the side issue of that becomes the environment. Heaven forbid a ship happens to have an accident and basically dumps a bunch of bunker fuel. We have more concerns than just that one individual turbine tower. We've got the whole environment to worry about. Again, we will provide recommendations and identify potential impacts as a cooperating agency to Balm. Again, as I said earlier, the safety and navigation of the entire maritime community. Traditional uses of the waterways, make sure they're identified, especially the MTS, but fishing as well. And then we have to also be very concerned about our ability to carry out our other missions, such as search and rescue, law enforcement, environmental protection. In effect, we're trying to reconcile the need for safe access routes with any other needs. And that's not just necessarily wind energy. It could be other forms of alternative energy. Again, fishing, recreation, tourism. We like to sometimes term that mutual coexistence. I could even add something else on here too, as well as agriculture is starting to grow quite a bit around the country. So they want pieces of the ocean as well. Again, we want to maintain a safe and efficient and resilient MTS system. That's how we get supplies in and out of our country. That's how we import and export. And if ships can't get in and out of the ports, those ports are going to dry up. It's going to affect the economy in a different way. And we just want to make sure, again, that vessels can get to and from the ports that they need to get to. Next, please. You saw this, Mr. McDuffie from Balm put this up, and I'm not going to elaborate on it other than to say the sentence at the bottom is very important to us. We try to be involved at every phase of Balm's process. We will review the area identification and we'll provide input there. We even look at the potential lease that's going to be published, and if there's anything there we think needs to be included. We review the site assessment plans and provide input back to Balm. All our input will go back basically to Balm and the developer as well if we have already set up that kind of relationship. We review the COP, especially part of the COP construction operation plan includes the navigation safety risk assessment, most important to us. We will review their NEPA documentation and eventually get to the point that we'll see their record of decision. And if we have to, if there's any terms and conditions that need further clarification, even as deep into the process as that is, we will provide that to Balm. Next, please. This is just a picture. I know it's a little busy and probably a little hard to see, but basically showing all the areas that we have been working with Balm. You've seen pretty much the ones up in the Northeast, but we're looking to expand to into the Carolinas, further south, off of California, and Hawaii as well. So we're very busy looking at all the possible proposals, and as the plans and the project gets better developed, we again look at it and provide input to Balm. Next, please. This is just a recap of all the different projects that we're aware of on the East Coast. I think we got it right. I think I plagiarized from Balm's website pretty well. I changed this slide for this presentation because the earlier slide I had about half of this current status of these projects was under the SAP stage, the site assessment plan, and they're no longer there. They're under COPS. So progress is being made on offshore wind in the United States. Next, please. Again, our involvement, as I said earlier, is at all stages. I would say we think probably the construction and operation plan is probably the most critical to us, and that's because we get to see a footprint. We get to know what number of turbines may be put in the wind farm, the size of the turbines, the axis orientation of the turbines. We also like spacing. Our guidance that we have provided to the developers, and Balm knows this as well, is that we really like if we can get 2 lines of orientation of the turbines, and if we can have it done in a grid pattern. That allows us, hopefully, mariners to pass through safely. And not all mariners will be able to do that because of their size, but those that can, hopefully they'll be safe and be able to go through the farm. And also our mission of search and rescue. We may have to send our own vessels in there and or possibly helicopters to do our job. So knowing that access and the spacing helps us out in those areas. And again, the other involvement is a navigation safety risk assessment. We have the developers do that, and they present it to us, so we review it, and we'll work with the developer to make sure they've taken all items of risk into consideration and identify the appropriate mitigations to reduce that risk to as low as reasonably practicable. Next, please. This just describes a little bit more in detail the navigation safety risk assessment. As I said, Balm requires a completion by the developer. We have provided guidance in a document called a NAVIC 0119. We have marine planning guidelines. I will say that we are in the throes of looking at those documents and updating those documents as we speak. More and more information from our counterparts across the pond, if you will, that have been living wind farms for 20 to 30 years, have learned a lot of lessons learned. So hopefully we're incorporating those things into our documentation. Again, we review it for Balm, and we'll provide what we consider recommendations and conditions to Balm and the developer concerning their mitigations, or even identify missing mitigations that we think the developer should take into account in order to do. Next, please. These are the topics from an NSRA. You can see that the list is pretty extensive. What the developer will do, they'll again provide the coordinates. They'll do traffic surveys. We're supposed to study to some degree the effect of tides and currents in the area, take a look at weather, look about, are they blocking visual navigation from other aids to navigation? The impact of risk of either collision, illusion, or groundings. They have to work on emergency response considerations, which is a lot further down the line in the process, but nonetheless, we want to make sure that they're at least addressing it and knowing what they're going to need to do. That shifts to Bessie and other entities within the Coast Guard, not my shop, but we'll be worried about an emergency response plan. And we also like to know about their operational procedures. Are they going to have an operations center? Are they going to be manned 24/7? Are they going to have vessels on scene all the time or just when work's done? Those type of things we like to know about. Next, please. Again, I mentioned our other missions, SAR, Marine Environmental Protection. That's why we review the wind farm proposal to determine the impact on those missions. In order to perform those missions, we may recommend to the developer and Balm that emergency shutdown procedures are identified. What are their communications capabilities with us? We may ask them to publish mariner information sheets that could be passed around and available online. What are their monitoring capabilities of their farm? Are they going to have cameras? Or like I said, vessels in the area? And then we get very involved with the developer as to how to mark and light these wind farms. Again, to protect the mariners as well as the wind farm property. Next, please. Our deliverables, again, it'll be some form of a document. In most cases, it's usually in letter form with the appropriate enclosures, where we would probably provide a recommendation as to adopt or not adopt the wind farm layout as proposed by the developer. Again, what are the design conditions, marking and lighting especially. We'd like to know that we can, and I'll put the word in quotes, control the blades and nacelles. Basically, if we can get the developer to stop them for emergency purposes, that's part of the process. We want to know the operation conditions, everything from installation, what their standard operational procedures are, what kind of staffing, what communications and monitoring, and anything else that comes up. We'll mention it to Balm, that things that we think we need. Next, please. Challenges of the Coast Guard, and I'm being very candid with this slide. We have limited authority. We are not a go, no-go agency. We cannot stop a farm. We cannot technically stop a lease. All we can do is provide our best professional opinions to Balm, and hopefully they would act accordingly. But we also see a need that there may have to be some policy statements developed. We've got a couple ideas in mind on what those would be. A challenge too is one size will not fit all. We've been requested in the past as to why we are not telling Balm that the layout of a farm has to be in a certain manner, and why aren't all the farms in the same manner? We just won't work that way. They're different. There's different factors concerning the farm and the location. So we're trying to maintain that one size will not fit all. We're trying to review these projects at the lowest level within the Coast Guard organization. Sometimes it gets a little difficult. In all candidness, Balm can ignore our recommendations. They've been pretty good so far with us, so no overall complaints, but there are some, and I jokingly say, arm wrestling sessions with them. And another challenge to us is there's no single energy office in the Coast Guard. There's different offices that handle different aspects of energy. For example, we have a different office that would handle oil and gas and other activities in the Outer Continental Shelf. So internal to the Coast Guard, we've got to try to get that all together so that we're speaking with one voice. Next, please. And that's it with my presentation. And there's my data on the bottom, how people can get a hold of me in the future. Again, I thank everyone for allowing me to present this, and obviously I'll be around for questions when that time comes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. And again, if folks if task force members did have questions for George, please jot them down and we'll get to them when we get to our clarifying questions